Vanakam, everybody. This year, as we approach the anniversary of Mullivai Cow, we are meeting in very different circumstances, with people having to socially distance and stay at home to protect their lives and others from the global coronavirus pandemic. And it's firstly on behalf of the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Tamils that we want to say thank you and pay tribute to the frontline staff in the UK and around the world who are helping to tackle this crisis. For many British Tamils, including those living in my constituency, the sacrifice of these frontline staff today will no doubt bring back memories of the medical professionals in Mullivai Cow who put their lives at risk to treat the injured in the midst of shelling and aerial bombing by the Sri Lankan security forces. And whilst we tackle the coronavirus pandemic, our work continues to make sure that we do not forget the events of 2009 and that the crimes against humanity and genocide committed in Sri Lanka will be remembered. We will continue to fight to ensure all those who committed those grave crimes are made accountable. The All-Party Parliamentary Group for Tamils and I will now...
Vanakkam. I just wanted to send a message of solidarity and support from myself, Edward Davey, and the Liberal Democrats to all my Tamil friends here in Britain and the Tamil diaspora across the world as we remember the people who were killed, who were injured, the children who became orphans as a result of the last few days of the war, as we remember Mullivai Cow on this Remembrance Day. I will never forget the suffering that we saw in those horrible last weeks, and I think we still need to have justice. Until there is an independent international inquiry into allegations of war crimes, I do not think we will have reached the justice the Tamil people deserve. And I will continue to work and campaign with Tamil friends to make sure we get that justice. And I think it's quite wrong. The Sri Lankan government is refusing to engage in the United Nations Human Rights Council, having failed to meet the obligations that it said it would do under the previous motion. So on this special day, as we remember with a degree of sadness what happened, I want to pay tribute to all those people who are working so hard for peace, justice and human rights. Thank you. Henry Manaka.
Hi, I'm Paul Scully, the Minister for London and previously the Chairman of the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Tamils. Can I first of all start by saying Vanakkam to Tamils in my constituency of Sartmanchee, across London and indeed across the world, who are commemorating today the 11th anniversary of Mullivai Cow, that last bloody battle in Sri Lanka's long-running civil war. It's disappointing not only to see little progress in achieving truth, reconciliation and justice to bring an end to that island's dark chapter in its history, but also to note that the Sri Lankan government themselves have pulled away from their commitment that they made to the United Nations to make progress on this. We as parliamentarians must make sure we can do all we can to bring pressure to bear on that government for the benefit of the Tamil people. But on a positive note, I celebrate what British Tamils have been doing in this extraordinary time of coronavirus and how it's affecting our society. They have been on the front foot as our doctors, our nurses, our carers and essential workers. And I want to say thank you to each and every one of them that actually show what the British Tamil community have developed and become such an integral part of our community that makes Britain great. Thank you. Nandri.
Today marks the 11th anniversary of the Mullivai Cow atrocities. Many Tamils in Ilford South and across Britain will be not only thanking this country for the refuge that it's given them, but more importantly renewing calls for justice, for a demilitarisation of Tamil homelands in northern Sri Lanka, and for the UN to be heeded and international observers for its calls to actually seek justice for those that lost their lives at the end of a near 70-year conflict on the island of Sri Lanka. And as your local MP in Ilford South, you know already that I'm focused on human rights right across the world for oppressed peoples and listening to all sides of any debate. But clearly, there does need to be justice, and the Tamil people of Sri Lanka need justice and need their right to self-determination in northeast Sri Lanka.
Vinaka. This is Bob Blackman, MP for Harrow East. This year, unfortunately, we're having to observe Malavikal, the Tamil Genocide Remembrance Day, on a virtual basis in the midst of the pandemic that has taken far too many lives across the United Kingdom and across the world. I want to take the opportunity to thank all the key workers, including all those wonderful medical professionals who are going above and beyond the call of duty to support all of us and to save lives. Today marks the 11th anniversary of the culmination of Sri Lanka's bloody civil war. It also marks 11 years of lack of accountability or justice for the horrendous war crimes committed against the Tamils. Just as the world outlook has been turned dark due to the pandemic, outlook for justice in Sri Lanka has also turned dark with the return of the Rajapaksa government in Sri Lanka. This is highlighted with Sri Lanka's withdrawal from the United Nations Human Rights Council resolutions, the only mechanism that was aimed at seeking justice. Now, I know the Tamil community, as they remember those who lost their lives in Malavikal and across the northeast, will be resolute in continuing their struggle for peace. I, for my part, will always campaign and stand up as a voice for the Tamil community and the endeavours of the Tamil community for peace, justice and reconciliation. Nandri.
Bonjour, je suis très fier d'être à vos côtés depuis plusieurs années et tout particulièrement dans ce contexte de pandémie virale. Je souhaite vous demander de vos nouvelles, savoir si vous vous portez bien, vous dire encore et encore de vous protéger et en protégeant les autres, et puis de respecter tous les gestes barrières, les consignes de sécurité sanitaire que nous entendons toutes et tous. La communauté tamoule, votre communauté, est particulièrement solidaire depuis plusieurs années, mais aussi dans ce contexte de lutte contre la propagation du virus. Vous vous demandez, parce que c'est un événement important qui a du sens, ce que nous allons faire à Sevran pour la cérémonie du 18 mai. Nous commémorerons encore une fois cette année cette cérémonie pour le devoir de mémoire, parce qu'il ne faut pas oublier le génocide, parce qu'il ne faut pas oublier vos morts, nos morts, parce qu'il ne faut pas oublier qu'il est important de faire justice, parce que tant qu'il n'y aura pas la justice, il n'y aura pas la paix. Donc je souhaite vous inviter à cette cérémonie du 18 mai que nous organiserons ensemble, dans un contexte évidemment particulier, en faisant en sorte que nous ne nous mettions pas en danger, mais surtout, je suis convaincu avec vous qu'il est important de ne pas oublier et d'organiser ensemble cette cérémonie. Merci à vous et...
Ici devant la stèle du lieutenant Shangar, qui a été tué en 1982 au Sri Lanka et qui est le premier martyr de la cause tamoule. Je me permets, à l'occasion de la commémoration qui aura lieu demain, de vous faire part de mon soutien, de mon amitié. J'ai été très fier et très honoré à l'époque, en 2017, avec l'association franco-tamoule de Carcharcel, d'ériger cette stèle, qui est une des seules stèles en France qui honore la mémoire des martyrs du peuple tamoul. Soyez sûrs de mon soutien, de ma fidélité, de ma solidarité. Je sais que la situation dans votre pays est extrêmement difficile et qu'il faut continuer à faire en sorte de connaître et de faire connaître le martyr que vous vivez. Soyez sûrs que je serai de toujours et de tout cœur avec vous pour continuer la lutte pour la vérité, pour la liberté et surtout pour que vous puissiez vivre libre et heureux en tant que Tamoul et que vous ne subissiez plus toutes les exactions que vous subissez actuellement. Encore une fois, soyez sûrs.
To the Sri Lankan community in my riding Laval des Îles and to the Tamil community around the world on the 11th anniversary of the armed conflict in Sri Lanka. We stand together. We stand together to honor those who were killed, who suffered, and who survived the atrocity committed during these terrible armed conflicts. The Tamil Genocide Day is a day of remembrance and for collectively mourn those who were killed and to protect against the lack of accountability for a crime against humanity. It is for the Tamil to demonstrate resistance and resilience as we call for accountability and sustainable peace. Let us be grateful to live in a country where all kinds of violence and discrimination are prohibited and where diversity is our beautiful source of unity, of strength, and it is also the lifeblood of our prosperity. My thoughts and sympathies are with the innocent victims, their families, and their loved ones. Let us come together from home and light a candle remembering the victims. Thank you.
Bonjour. Une fois n'est pas coutume, c'est de mon bureau de maire d'Argenteuil que je vous envoie ce message pour vous souhaiter de retrouver le plus vite possible la paix dans votre pays d'origine, au Sri Lanka. Le peuple tamoul a souffert depuis longtemps des différentes exactions. J'ai d'ailleurs un ami, Siva Panudurai, qui est conseiller municipal d'Argenteuil, qui m'en a témoigné plusieurs fois. Donc c'est dans un cadre qui ne nous permet pas d'ouvrir comme d'habitude le parc des Cerisiers à Argenteuil, où une stèle est érigée depuis longtemps, un arbre a été planté depuis déjà quelques années, et donc écoutez, je souhaite que ce témoignage vous apporte le plus grand réconfort pour faire en sorte que les Tamouls soient mieux lotis, mieux préservés, mieux respectés, que ce soit dans le monde entier ou que ce soit dans leur pays d'origine. Donc, bonne commémoration, plus privée que d'habitude. Bonne commémoration, et j'espère qu'on se retrouvera l'année prochaine pour quelque chose de beaucoup plus.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, the great Tamil nation, the great Tamil people scattered around the world, whom I met over many years, many occasions, shining, bright communities in many different countries across the world. Today it's a great honor to be with you to mark the Mulivaikal genocide. Genocide that happened in the past, like Rwanda genocide, the genocide in Timor-Leste throughout the 70s all the way to 99, 2000. The killing fields in Cambodia, the killing fields in Indonesia itself in 1965-66, the ongoing tragedies in South Sudan, in Syria. These are man-made, human-made tragedies that shock all of us in this 21st century. Humanity does not seem to have learned from the tragedies of the past. I don't need to go back to before World War II. Let's stay with World War II and since the genocide of the Jewish people, the apocalypse, the killing of gypsies in Europe by the Nazi regime, and then massacres across Latin America, in the conflicts in Central America, throughout the African continent, the carpet bombing of Vietnam and Cambodia by the United States, with the use of chemical weapons like Orange Agent, whose effect we still see today. And not to mention the atomic bomb and drop on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Then the conflict in Syria, ongoing now for almost 10 years. 700,000 people died. And the parties involved in the Syrian conflict, both the regime and the various different groups, unable to sit down and save their people. Regional powers, major international powers sit in the Security Council, unable to mediate and bring to an end the conflict in Syria. Now we have the conflict in Libya, continuing violence in Iraq, that rise in tension between Israel and Iran. The list is endless. In the midst of all of this, we have the coronavirus epidemic, that is wreaking havoc all over the world, ruining our lives, ruining the lives of hundreds of millions of people who are totally innocent. A virus that started elsewhere in a province in China was not promptly contained. Maybe, I'm not blaming anyone, maybe it would have not been possible to detect and contain within the first week of the first cases. Far too easy to say the Chinese side should have contained it. We don't know. But the reality is our lives, the lives of our people, the lives of hundreds of millions in Africa, Asia, Latin America, Europe are ruined, but particularly our lives in the developing world. This is the world we are in today. It is in this context that I want to address you. First, great respect to the people of Tamil land. Over years, I follow the struggle of the Tamil people. I'm very impressed with you, Tamil people, in the United Nations, in New York and elsewhere, throughout Europe, in Asia, in Malaysia, Sri Lanka, and elsewhere. I have met outstanding Tamil people. Every time I see someone South Asia looking, I can guess he is a Tamil. And when I ask, yes, he's a Tamil. Tamil who are prominent academics in universities, scientists, great entrepreneurs that contribute so much to the economies and science and medicine, to the United Nations system. So a great respect for you people. At the same time, it is with a tremendous sorrow that we watched the last war brought upon all of you, brought upon the Tamil people, brought upon the people of Sri Lanka themselves. It is in this context that I have to be frank. Look at the case of Timor-Leste. We lost 200,000 people out of population in 1975 of about 700,000. Was it really necessary, unavoidable, that 200,000 people had to die for the international community to do something about it? We fought alone with next to zero international support for 24 years. And zero international support in terms of physical presence in this country, humanitarian presence, maybe